They were in the car in absolute silence. Shortly after they got in and started driving, she took out her phone and spent some time exchanging messages with someone while he remained completely impassive, his eyes fixed on the road and paying her no attention. After a while, she put her phone down and must have finally noticed the silence in the car, with only the roar of the engine providing some background noise. After a moment, she said, "I'm usually welcomed more enthusiastically." He didn't take his eyes off the road and remained silent for a while before answering, to her surprise, "This is not how I imagined the night would end." She noticed the bitterness in his voice and thought it wise to remain silent. But she couldn't hold back for long. "I was messaging your wife. I was telling her I was the lucky winner." "Lucky?" "Yes. You have no idea how long almost all of us have been pining for you. For years, we've been insisting with Marie to convince you, but she always said you would never agree." She was right. He interrupted her in a curt manner. "But when we found out today was the day, we were all buzzing. When my number was called, everyone shot me envious looks. I must have been the most envied woman of the night." He didn't respond, seeming to remain absorbed in 1,000 thoughts. He was nothing like Marie had described. He wasn't cheerful, nor was he friendly. She began to realize that something was wrong. "Are you okay?" she finally asked him. A somewhat sinister smile and a gleam passed through his eyes, something that scared her a little, but he finally said, "I'll be fine." They arrived at his house. He drove into the garage, closed the door, got out of the car, and went inside without waiting for her, a gesture that left her completely bewildered. All the men in the group she had been with always had a gleam of lust in their eyes when they realized they would be spending the night with her. They did everything possible to treat her like a princess. She knew she caused envy in women and lust in men wherever she went, but this man, the most desired, seemed to not even register her presence. Something was indeed very wrong in this picture. She got out of the car and went into the house, finding him in the kitchen while he took ice from the fridge into a glass. "Do you want something to drink?" he asked, not seeming to care much about the answer. "I'll join you with whatever you're drinking," she replied, feeling unsure about what to do. A suspicion formed in her mind, and she couldn't help herself. "You didn't know anything, did you?" she asked, half afraid. He finally looked her in the eyes, and she was startled by the fire she saw in his gaze. Usually, that fire was lust for her, but she realized that what lay beneath the surface was not so simple. "No, I didn't know. And when I realized, it was too late." She finally understood why he was like this. "Listen," she said, "I know you may not believe what I'm about to tell you right now, but Marie loves you." He burst out laughing in a way she wasn't expecting. But it wasn't a laugh of happiness, it was an ironic laugh. "She loves me," he added as he handed her a glass of 21-year-old Bushmills. The disappointment in his voice was evident. "Listen, she married you without ever having another man, and she has never been unfaithful to you until now. You expect me to believe that? I hope you do because it's true. You know, when she found out about the exclusive group, she was excited but said right away that it was impossible because you would never agree to go. And until last week, we all thought we'd never see her at one of the parties. She loves you, but she's always been curious about being with someone different. What it would be like. When she said she was coming this week, she also said it would probably be the only time." He looked at her with a completely blank expression. She continued, "You don't know how lucky I felt to be the one drawn to you." He looked at her with an inscrutable expression on his face but didn't respond, and an awkward silence fell between them. After a while, feeling somewhat uneasy, she asked, "Can you tell me where the bathroom is?" He merely pointed to a door, and she got up and headed there. The night was not turning out at all as she expected. She entered the bathroom and could only think to herself, "Marie, what have you done?" She looked at herself in the mirror, composed herself, and thought, "I really have to seduce him, or this is going to end in disaster." She slipped out of her clothes, leaving only the lingerie she had carefully chosen. She looked at herself in the mirror again and thought, only a saint would deny me, and exited the bathroom. She found him in the living room, sitting in an armchair with a vacant, empty look, seeming completely absent and lost in his thoughts. He didn't even register her entrance or look at her. Undeterred, she positioned herself in front of him, imposing her presence. He finally seemed to notice her, but the fact that she was almost naked didn't provoke any reaction in him. She knelt in front of him, slid her hands along his legs, and traveled up his torso. His only reaction was to take another sip of whiskey. She began to unbutton his shirt, and he continued without any reaction, neither encouraging her nor telling her to stop. She kept going until she had fully unbuttoned his shirt. Marie hadn't lied, this man was in remarkably good shape for his age. She started kissing him at the bottom of his stomach and moved up his torso to his neck, but despite not stopping her, he continued without any reaction. Finally, she looked him in the eyes. This is going to happen only once. I'm yours tonight, and you're mine. He looked at her with an expression of almost disdain on his face. She had never felt like this before. But she continued, at this moment, Marie is with another man enjoying her only night of freedom. Why don't you enjoy yours too? He looked at her for a few minutes while she started to caress him over his pants. Suddenly, he grabbed her and kissed her fiercely, leaving her completely surprised and breathless. Then he stood up, picked her up in his arms, and carried her to the bed.